Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin Robbie, and I am here today with Miss Jen, this Jen King from Space Cadets Collection Collection. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been a good day so far. We have lots of happy customers finally getting their books.
Yeah, you had your books delayed this week, you said.
Yeah, I don't actually know if it's like a nationwide problem. It sounds like some stores are only experiencing a little bit of a delay, but our area at least has had 72 hours late for the last 3 weeks. So the
Oh,
transportation issues have been kind of interesting for us. It's hard on the staff, right? Because they're used to processing on Tuesday at a specific time, and it's discombobulating for everybody. But they've got it.
yeah. It can throw all those schedules off. It messes my whole day up if the diamond order's late or the penguin order or the lunar order or anything like that. Everything just starts falling. We're so systematic in our routines. Especially in the comic industry and the on the retail side, where it's like this usually happens on this day, then you do this on this day, and all that stuff. So, and you never
The
like
really hard
having
problem
what's that?
the big problem for me is that I've had a review show that I've done for 7 years now, every single Tuesday at 6 p.m. And when you don't have all the books in your hands, it makes it really frustrating.
Yeah, I was watching one, and you had like just photocopies or something of the covers in the background, but at least you still had some kind of representation, right?
Yes, exactly.
Jen, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you get into comics?
Oh, it was kind of late in life, honestly, because my only exposure to comic books as a young person was my mom's best friend had three boys, and those three boys each had a comic book. So two Archie books and one Tom Brady football comic book. And we read those things to death, but that was my only exposure to comic books as a young person. I didn't rediscover them again until I got into graduate school. And in between my morning classes and evening classes, I would wander off of campus to go try to find something else to do, and found a local, like this was back in the 90s, local sports card place that also carried comic books, and just kind of started just organizing his space for him, because I'm just kind of one of those people that likes organizing things, which
Yeah,
is a perfect match for comic books, obviously. But I used to make collated sets for him, and then I found the comic section and really fixed it. And it's his comic section was four long boxes on a table, to be fair.
mm, yeah,
But it started me on my path of being interested in the form, and I liked the atmosphere of the shop, just kind of like everyone knew everybody, and it felt really comfortable. And I was like, I could get down with this, like hanging out and talking about a collectible all day long.
yeah, yeah. It's a pretty fun industry to get into. What made you decide to what was the journey into becoming a retailer?
Oh, okay. So my husband's super supportive, but he also knows that I get super gung ho about things, and might go into something full blast that I might need more information about. So he knows that about me. So he said, okay, because I told him I wanted to open my own comic book shop. This was when I was 25. He said, okay, well, you can do that, but let's try out something first, like a small form of it. And we were living in Oklahoma City at the time. So we opened up, they had a really nice indoor flea market there, which it's a huge one. It probably is still there, actually. And so we opened up a little corner space there and did that for a couple of years, just on Saturday and Sunday. And it cemented in him the fact that he is definitely an oil and gas executive and not a comic book retailer. But he liked hanging out with me on the weekend, so that's how it all started.
Oh, that's awesome. I remember back in the day, especially in the late 80s and 90s, going to flea markets and buying comics up and little action figures and stuff like that. I just ate all of that up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that was a great time to be into it too, like everybody was excited. They were doing these crazy things back in the 90s, and then they had some problems, but I think the industry's, ironed itself out. I think it's still pretty strong, and it's really cool to chat with another retailer. I manage a shop, and you own and manage your shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're at the
I'm
shop
a
right
very
now, aren't you?
hands-on owner.
Yeah, you're at the shop right now, aren't you?
I sure am.
Yeah, that's awesome. You do your shows from the shop too, right?
Yeah, from this space right here. So we rearranged recently. I used to do them out of our warehouse spaces attached to our shop, but I felt more and more disconnected from my own customer base, who I love. It's the reason why I do retail, because I like talking. So I formed a new section out in front so that I can have enough space to do it. Actually perfect the way that I've got it set up to do signings as well. So this is also our signing space.
Cool.
But it's fun because then people can walk by and ask me questions. And I always tell people this is a live comic show and a live comic shop.
That's awesome. That's super cool. So tell everybody real quick, because you have quite a few shows over at The Experience. So why don't you talk about those a little bit?
Okay, so The Experience, the shows that people have seen with me in them right now are, we have a Monday show, which is pretty fun, called Mishmash. I've come up with the most ridiculous names for my shows, and I apologize for them. But I don't even know what mishmash means, except for to me it means who knows what's in these boxes. I can really make it have anything in the show that I want, but it's fun to scream. So mishmash. And then our producer, JD, is caught on to the fact that I like funny memes and stuff. So he has millions of memes that he pulls up that are animal mosh pits. So like puppies attacking someone that's laying on the ground, or cats in a cat lady's house. It's funny. So we have a lot of mosh jokes going on.
Nice.
And then on Thursdays, I have one that's called What's in the Box. And we also yell that one too. And of course, yes, we show the scene from Seven because it's hilarious. And that was meant to be, I try to save boxes that come in from publishers or from independent creators, Kickstarter things. And I try not to open those during the week, and I try to open those during that show and offer those things up at that time. But sometimes I get really big collections in that I just can't wait. I'm just like, sorry, this is what's in the box that I know what's in the box. And then right after the show last night, we were on Thursday night shooting our new game show, which is Nerdcular Warfare, which is a lot of fun. Robbie, you should absolutely play it at least once to have fun with it.
What's the point? What's the setup?
Okay, so you've seen lots of nerdy debate kind of things, right? And those are fun to watch, but they get kind of tiring. Like, who would win, Batman or Superman? It's like, okay, you can only discuss that so many times. But the show that I've created is much more different. So it always has a something versus something. But I always do things in pairs. So one of the earliest shows that we did was Cars and Drivers. So it was meant to be a car chase. So I gave everybody, there's always a head-to-head thing. So I give the one contestant their car and the other contestant their car. And they're always ridiculous things. It could be a speed buggy and a Kit from Knight Rider.
Okay.
And then I give the drivers. And the way that I've designed the game is that there's no way that the driver could ever match the car. And they're usually the most ridiculous drivers. So Baby Driver and Jason Statham. Okay? And you never know what your pairing are until you get the pairing. And then I create some kind of weird scenario in which the race is occurring. So Italy's tiny little mini streets. And then everyone gets chances to go back and forth. Everyone gets a minute rebuttal to kind of like argue with each other. And there's no rules in these arguments. So you can make up stuff. You just have to believe that your opponent doesn't know any better. You can talk about the person who plays the part. You can argue that your character's a cartoon, so anything's possible. We've shot probably 8 shows or so, and it's so fun to watch because I try to make it the most fun pairings ever and throw everybody way off with them. And it really lets people shine their like nerdy knowledge, or at least their ability to baloney.
That's awesome. Their creativity, we'll call it that, right? Mm-hmm. Which is basically just lying. But yeah, that's really fun. That sounds like a really cool show, kind of right up my alley. I'd love to do one of those one day. That'd be super fun.
We'd love to have you.
All right, so here's a question that always gets asked. So I'll go ahead and just ask you: who is your favorite comic book character?
Oh, goodness. Usually everyone asks me my favorite comic book, but characters are different.
Yeah.
Probably right now my favorite's Gale from the Black Hammer series. Because
Okay.
she's a little, well, just like I love broken characters, okay? So this character is specifically a older lady trapped in a young person's body and trapped away from what they were doing anyway as a superhero group. So Jeff Lemire writes the most wonderful characters that you really care about, but then pretty much, breaks your heart every single issue somehow. And I don't know why that appeals to me. Maybe because it's not real. And I'm like, my heart is broken, but now I can close the book and go about my life.
Yeah, right. I always, when I do my review shows, a lot of times when I come across his work, I'm like, he's got this uncanny ability to do these like bittersweet stories where there's like maybe there's a tinge of hope in it, but it is always kind of got this melancholy, sad approach to it. Like one of my favorites by him is Royal City. Like I adore that book, like absolutely adore it. It's coming back. I'm super excited for that because there's more to that story, I think, to be developed. Have you read May's book? Did you finish that up?
Yeah, that's another one of those you get to. What is it? The third issue when it punches you in the face?
Yes.
Or maybe it's just the second one where you find out about what the real deal is. It's like, what in the world? Yeah,
and the way it ended, like, I absolutely loved it. Like, with the idea of acceptance, but still, like, it's able to balance that, like, it's kind of like Ice Cream Man does this, like, the hope and the despair of the human experience. Like, Lemire does that 100% fantastically well.
Yeah, my favorite Ice Cream Man was the one that dealt with dementia. That one needs to win an Eisner. It's probably too late for that issue because of the years, but that one needed to be nominated.
Yeah, Ice Cream Man's been one of my absolute favorites. What's your favorite ongoing series right now?
I tend to lean to limited series, but if I was going to be picking one, Scout has a really great ongoing series called White Ash by Charlie Stickney.
Okay.
Which is just a really, really rich world. Best described as like Lord of the Rings meets like some crazy love interest movie. It's just like the universe just is built in a regular American town where the main industry is mining.
Okay.
And it's about the two main characters who, there's going to be a love interest thing eventually between these two. But everyday life, slice of life, looks like an idyllic, like 50s and 60s town. But you find out very soon in the series that what the secret of the town is that they are hiding in plain sight elves and dwarves, which are the dwarves are actually the people that are mining, and other creatures you would normally think about from Lord of the Rings. Just living normal everyday lives, trying to hide in plain sight. And it's from Charlie, he says that there's at least 60 issues that he's already got fussed out in his brain, and they're putting them out in little 6-story arcs. So love it.
Very cool. We carry it at the shop, but I haven't actually dived into that one yet. I am loving By the Horns from Scout. That's like one of my favorite books of the last year. That book has been fantastic. I'm so excited to see that one get extended out into an ongoing type fashion because I love that one.
Yeah, I think it's cool how they left that kind of like emotional destruction issue until farther into the series. Where you actually get to kind of like, they've always said that her husband was killed by something with a horn. But you never get to really experience any of that. You just take her word for that's why she's out there killing things with horns. Despite the fact that she has, as a creature that walks around with her, something with 5 horns. I don't know. I'm a caller on it.
Yes. I loved it. That was the way that was paced out was great. And each issue stands on its own. The characters and the character designs, like I want action figures. Like that's how cool they are. I feel like if this was an 80s cartoon, it would like rock ass. It would just be awesome.
I mean, because Scout has got Tracker, which is their new toy company. I bet you they just finished Kickstarter to make like the Draco knuckle dusters and that kind of stuff, and it went far enough that they could get the white ash figure made. So I'm sure that by and by that we'll get to all of them.
Well, if anybody out there at Scouts out there listening, like if you're doing By the Horns figures, like you call me, we'll get you on the show. We'll talk about it. We'll spread the word, y'all. We make it happen. Hashtag By the Horns action figures.
Oh yeah, those guys are cool dudes. I don't know if you got to hang out with James Hake yet, or Charlie Stickney, or Richard Rivera, or anybody over there. They're all so cool.
Yeah, I hear they're cool. I deal with them a little bit as a retailer. I've gotten phone calls. I don't remember from who, but I haven't really gotten a face-to-face or anything like that yet. But somebody came by the shop like a few weeks ago. It's like the week of Christmas, but I don't remember who it was. I think it was somebody new coming in or something. Yeah. And they were just going around the area. But yeah, we love Scout. We order directly from them. So like even when Diamond shorts us or is delayed, we still have Scout books.
Yeah, it's one of those things that there's only one thing that I dislike about doing it. And one is that sometimes there's too much time. Like they send every other week, but sometimes there's a book that releases in between that people are looking for on the rack, and I have to explain, we're getting it straight from Scout. Don't worry, we've got a butt ton coming, so you don't have to worry about whether you can get it or not. But I don't even actually know when the release schedule is for anything, because they say I can sell it as soon as I have it. That's the part I like.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, absolutely. Because sometimes I'll do that, because for my weekly review, I'm like, I'll say it, and then people are like, that's not out till like 2 weeks. And I'm like, oh, really? My bad. Oh. I had no idea.
Then you just say, I have magical powers.
Yes. There are people, how does this happen? How are you, how do you like the, since Diamonds, had Marvel and DC split off, and now there are people like Scout that are kind of doing their own distribution as well. That's an option. How do you like it better than just the sole Diamond way, or do you like having more options like that?
So full disclosure, since I started in business, I've always tried to buy directly from the toy company or the publisher or whatever. Just, I like that hands-on approach from them, and getting to, straight from them what they think is going to be the thing I should buy and how much. I like that relationship. So I've been doing that for a long time. Like the Source Point Press subscription program was started by me saying to them, you know what I'd like? I would like to have X copies of this and X copies of number ones and X copy of trays. And I don't ever want to order them. I just want them to show up at my place, and I don't want to think about it anymore. And that's how it got born, because that's exactly the way they use their program. It's just like, you get X copies of this and X copies of that. And if you need more, you just let them know. You can adjust it. They send emails on the regular. Yeah. So it's like, I actually don't mind it, because I've always been used to having lots of boxes come from lots of different places. But I can understand people that are used to having, like if they order their toys, their comics, their trays and everything from Diamond, to now have to try to figure out how to have multiple staffs on multiple days deal with boxes come in. That might be hard to adjust, or especially if you're a single person shop, which there's a lot out there that are amazing shops that are just operating with one or two people. It's hard to have things come in every day and try to plan out your day and get everything finished.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that. That's been a struggle, especially over the last year. It's like, it used to be very dependable. We'd get our gaming supplies on this day. We would get our Diamond reorders on this day. We would get this on this day. We'd get our initial orders on this day. And now it's like all over the place. We have multiple gaming distributors. We've got multiple book distributors, because in order to be able to stock, say, manga adequately or modern Marvel trades, we have to have 4 different book distributors. And
true.
And then I'm like, did I order it from them, or did I order it from Ingram already? Oh man, it gets crazy. And every day we're just getting stuff in. And luckily, as much, if not more, obviously, it's going out, I guess. So it wouldn't be coming in if it's not going out, right?
Well, I also came from the era when I started in 95. That was when still there was Capital as a distributor, and Diamond, and then also Heroes whenever Marvel started distributing. So I kind of started in the business with multiple distributors, and I've been saying publicly as an industry person for a while that I love Diamond and I love the Jeppies, but it feels like a bad plan to have no other options
Yeah.
for when crazy things happen, like there's horrible weather there, or if there's riots in their area, or any other things that might happen on one part of the country. To have no other places to be able to get books from means everybody is stuck. And so I think that where we are now is a much more healthy place with choices and the ability to pivot. If we like, okay, there's an emergency, we can actually ask somebody else to get books for us, and it might happen. So as much as it is a extra pain to try to remember where we've ordered things from, because I also have that same thing. It was like, going, did I already order these?
Yeah, right. The other day, I had like multiple distributors throughout that week. I ordered like the same Junji Ito books, but luckily they fly off the shelf. So
yeah, that's not a problem.
Not a problem at all. Just every time I see it, so it's available now. They finally got Uzumaki back in stock, and I was like, oh my goodness, order as many as I can.
I ordered some ridiculous amounts of the Cat Diary, and it's already gone.
Yeah, they're already gone, and I can't get them right now. So I'm waiting for that to come back in. I'm just now getting into Ito's work because I was kind of slow getting into manga. Like I've read Akira, and that's pretty much like what I know. And so I started reading some of his books because I'm a big horror fan. And so far, I've only read Dissolving Classroom and Censor because they're like, I guess they were like shorter. So I just grabbed those. I read this afternoon, and I've been loving them so far. So I'm really excited to dive into some of those really popular ones I keep hearing about.
Yeah, there's some really great ones. It's not my first form of reading either, but I'm kind of like relying on some of my regular customers to hold my hand and say which ones, because I'm not into the real graphic romance ones with a lot of nudity, because it's just not me. So I trust them to I want ones that have I don't know, mystery and real character development stuff in them that don't rely on we're just get to the next part where they take off their clothes. Yeah,
those ones I've noticed they sell pretty well, but but I have a pretty cool staff, and a lot of them will tell me, hey, order Booty Royale. I'm like, okay, sure. Oh yeah, whatever.
There's one we just got in that I was like, I'm not putting that out there because we're a family friendly shop. I was like, this one's called Might As Well Cheat. I got transported to another world where I can live my wildest dreams.
I got that one in this week too, and I'm like, what is this?
First things, that's a ridiculous premise. Second thing, are they just trying to see if they can make the world's longest title?
I mean, and now American comics are trying to compete. You know, they're not near as long, obviously. I mean, the Japanese titles got the American ones beat.
I think maybe this is one of those trends where we're trending up to we're going to see books that have the entire front of the book is, what's the farthest place from here, blah, 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 more things. And then later on we'll end up with there will just be, the comic's name will be B.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope that doesn't happen, because you can imagine searching out comic book that's just named B, just the letter.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, that would be obnoxious. Yeah, it's an interesting trend. I think Bueller was saying something too about he's like, there's going to be a trend eventually where the show it's just called butter, just one word kind of thing. Like in the 90s when there was that trend in alternative rock bands to just have one word names like Live, Bush, Oasis, Blur. Stuff. What's that?
It's so true.
Yeah, it goes in waves, right? And then when there was a trend where the band names were really long or something like Godspeedy something Emperor or something I'm like, what? That's a long name for a band.
3 word names or.
Yeah. We're like, okay, whatever.
I always found that all bands the way they chose their names is that they put a bunch of words into a hat and picked 2. And whatever came out in whatever order they came out, that's what they named themselves.
Yes, exactly. Smashing Pumpkins works, but there are ones that, you're definitely like, huh? How did they get that name? It's interesting. Radiohead. Okay. Let's put those words together. Blind. Okay. Third Eye Blind, yeah. Eve 6 got their name from X-Files episode.
So, well,
yeah. Yeah, it was very early. It was the one of the ones about clones, and they were all clones called Eve, and one was Eve 6. So yeah, that initially got me into that. So the X-Files was my jam back in the 90s. What's your Mount Rushmore of TV shows? Like the ones throughout your life that you just love above all else.
The ones that I can watch over and over and over again. I mean, other than Forensic Files. Don't get me started on that. Like I've watched every show probably 20 times over now. Just like whenever I can't sleep, I go downstairs and put them on and sleep in 22-minute segments. Nice. Anybody that's addicted to a Forensic Files knows exactly what I mean by 22-minute segments. But for TV shows that I am obsessed with, the acting and the storyline and the character development and the human drama of it all are Battlestar Galactica, the newer version, of course, and the Expanse series, which I'm heartbroken that the last season is on right now, which I refuse to finish because then it lives forever.
I've heard a lot of stuff recently about the Expanse, and it's one that always seems appealing to me, but I haven't dived into it yet.
Robbie, do you like reading novels?
Yeah, I do, but I rarely find the time to devote to it, but I really do.
It's based on a 7-book series that's really, really great. You can go in either order, watching the TV show or doing the books first. They're actually very loyal to the source material, and you'll feel very happy with the people and the way they cast it. It's like the way that they describe every character in the book. It's like they created that person in some kind of like scientific lab and then put them on the screen, because it's exactly what the way they're described in the books.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because that was on Sci-Fi at first, and then it jumped somewhere else or something.
Yeah, they got picked up by Amazon.
That's pretty cool. Back in the day when a show got canceled, it just got canceled, but we live in a world now where it doesn't mean that it's over, so that's kind of cool, right? Imagine if it was like that back in the days of Twin Peaks and Firefly, which we did eventually get another Twin Peaks. But, it could have lived on.
I kind of wish that they had, as much as I wanted them to finish all the mythos of X-Files, I kind of wish they didn't do the last one, because now I'm wrecked for life. Did you watch the last X-Files?
I've sporadically watched through the last 3 or 4 years. Like when Mulder was out, I was basically out.
So the one that they finished the series with takes all of those, who's related to who's a cigarette smoking man, how is he, what's the genetic through line for the sister and all that stuff. It will make you throw up in your mouth a lot. And it's heart-wrenching. It's great, but it's one of those things just okay, all this makes all the sense in the world, but man, what?
Yeah. Yeah, I always like to look at it just watch X-Files up to the movie. To me, the movie was a good ending. If I could just end it there. And I've tried to go through and rewatch just so I can get the entire thing. And it's not, to me, nowadays, a very bingeable show, because it's so case of the week. And which I love watching, but the best way I think would be maybe one at a time for one a week or something like that. I find that with I love Star Trek: The Next Generation, and I used to be able to watch that all day long, but nowadays, because I guess there's so much else I want to read and watch and do and participate in, that it's hard to binge those kind of things for me nowadays.
Yeah, there's some things I've tried to go back and binge that weren't great when I went back to them, like Buck Rogers, terrible. Yeah. That was my obsession when I was a kid. I was going to marry Gil Gerard, absolutely. He was going to be my husband. But SG-1 remarkably stands up.
Yeah, I've never watched that one either. Everybody always told me about that one. They recommended that and Farscape, but I never got into them. Because I used to spend all my time rewatching Star Trek Next Generation and Buffy VHS recordings that I made.
True story. I watched my first episode of Farscape with Gianni in the room. She came into the signing at our store. And I'm always a very honest human being. And I said, I've heard so much wonderful things about your acting and about this show. I just have never found time to do it. And I am a person that doesn't do things halfway. I watch everything. So she was like, well, we're going to fix that. We're going to show an episode, my favorite episode, here at the store.
Nice.
Okay, let's do it.
That's really cool. She's watching for your reaction. She's just
I was nervous about that. She was like, don't stare at me.
You're overreacting like, oh, wow. That's hilarious. What's the last great movie you saw?
Last great movie I saw was the newest Spider-Man, because it's everything I needed right now. It's like I needed a real good cry because everyone's emotionally all like bound up because we don't feel like we should be emotional. Like everyone else is going through the exact same pandemic, so it's like, well, it can be tough, but it was fair game to bawl like a baby in that film. And yeah, I think it's awesome also that finally Garfield, who I knew was so passionate about being Spider-Man, I saw him at San Diego Comic-Con when he got the part and showed up in like Spider-Man pajamas at the panel and was asking questions like an audience member. And he was like jumping out of his skin. He was so psyched. I always felt like it was a disservice because he got those two, movies and then just got kind of passed over. And everyone always gave him so much heck about it. To have him to feel like he got validated in this film, so much so that people were like, he needs to get his third. Like there's petitions being signed.
Yeah, that would be a weird direction to go into, but. And me, I'm someone who I do not like those Andrew Garfield films, like at all. Like I really don't like, especially that second one, right? But I never felt that his performance was the problem. The way that Peter was written was a problem for me because he was like too cool, like on his skateboard, and I never felt like he like learned anything about responsibility. But there were moments where like him as Spider-Man worked really well. And even for the role that Peter was crafted in the script, he played that pretty well, right? I loved Andrew Garfield in No Way Home. I loved him. I think I loved him more than Tobey. And the Tobey Spider-Mans are my heart. You know what I'm saying? Yep. That's my Richard Donner Superman for my like early 20s, Like I was fully aware that Batman, I was a kid when I went and saw that. But Spider-Man was a big deal. And I love those movies.
Robbie, the only thing that movie was missing, and I wish with all my heart that they had done it. They just was missing an after scene or at some part during the movie to have Tobey pull out his phone and be talking to Mary Jane and have it be, of course, the original actress, and to see their redheaded daughter in the background and have it be renew your vows and have them call her Annie.
That'd be really cool.
Let's do it.
That'd be really cool. Or
making it work.
Yeah. Or just set up the Mayday Parker stuff, you know, and then set up the possibility of, raising that what is it, 101 or whatever up again? Was it 100 or is it 101? I don't remember which one. Anyway.
Oh gosh. I'm gonna fail and not remember.
Yeah, who knows? I know the cover when I see it. That's the way I know. I recognize covers more than I do that. People are always like, "Hey, what's the first appearance?" Blah blah blah. I'm like, I don't know, but I know what the cover looks like. So, like, if I'm going through a collection, I can pick it out. But I'm bad with the
visual memory.
Yeah,
it is an actually helpful one if you're a comic books person.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, absolutely. It's a visual medium, right? Mm-hmm. So, speaking of that, who are your favorite comic book artists? We've talked a lot about the characters. It seems like the stories really appeal to you too. The stories, the worlds, the characters. But what about the art? Like, who are your favorite comic artists?
Probably like Tyler Boss, from specifically like Four Kids Walk Into a Bank, or right now with What's the Farthest Place from Here. There's something that's very wonderful about the way he depicts people, so that they have all their awkwardnesses. Like he does this fun thing where he can even do, there'll be a scene where it's many, many multiples of panels, and it's the main character is kind of like an overshot, and the character is going from room to room, kind of like those old Family Circus cartoons, where it would follow them through, and your eye just goes right with where it's supposed to go with the dialogue and everything else. But if you look at the places where they go, there's all these crazy stuff happening in the background, and he's a master. I think he's my favorite right now, which is kind of an odd bird because everyone says Peach Momoko, and
Yeah, people, a lot of Momoko fans. Boss is really good. I love when Four Kids walk into a bank because I'm pretty sure he was the letterer of that book too, and
That
the
makes
way the way he designed that all was absolutely fantastic. And at this one, he has Hassan Otsman El How, I believe, and the lettering is perfect too. The way it flows. So it's a cool book. I want What's the Furthest Place from Here to hook me a little bit better right now, but the art is not my problem with it. I don't really necessarily have a problem with it. I'm just still like trying to figure out the identity of what this book is supposed to be. You know what I'm
sure,
saying?
sure. Whether like right now, it just kind of feels like a little bit like they're the group from Wizard of Oz, just trying to find where they're supposed to be going, right?
Yeah, just following the yellow brick road in a way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tyler Boss is a good pick. He doesn't
How
get
about
near
yours?
enough love. Right now, of all time, it's like, I mean, I'm a big Jack Kirby fan and Mike Mignola, Francisco Francavilla, and John Byrne. I love the Jim Lee stuff. Right now, I am loving Dan Mora and Jorge Jimenez a lot. They are able to do like the superheroes, like big, splashy, fun, exciting type stuff really well. Big fan of Cliff Chang. Yeah, I would go with those two in particular right now. But man, I'm blanking right now. Hardcore. Why am I blanking? So Mike Huddleston, his work on Decorum, I thought was next
Oh,
level. Love
woo.
that. Love that book. Yeah. I mean, there's so Ivan Reese. I'm a big fan of him. When I'm glad to see him on Detective. Um, yeah, Joelle Jones.
Hmm.
When she does the book, I just heard the Wonder Girl got canceled. That's unfortunate. That character had such hype about her like a year ago,
Oh yeah.
right? And they were going to do a TV show that didn't happen, and now the book has been canceled, and her last couple issues folded into that Trials of the Amazon stuff. So that's
Maybe
unfortunate.
it's just a little bit of the decision making process that goes into. There's almost only so much paper we can get right now. Where are we going to focus our paper?
Yeah, and I don't think that shrinking lines is a bad thing. The problem with DC when they shrink their lines is it makes the percentage of Batman titles go up even further.
I know. It's like, why not just like not have Batman come out every week?
And multiple, like so many Batman books every week. And the problem is, some of them are good, and so
Oh
it's like, it's like, damn it! Like I really didn't want Robin and Batman to be good, but it was great. I really didn't want Batman the Imposter to be good, but I liked it. I didn't really want One Dark Knight to be good because there's so much Batman. But most people, most creators, when they get in the industry, I probably one of the first things they think is, "What's my Batman pitch?" You know, so everybody's got
yeah.
like a Batman story. Even us fans and retailers and things. Do you dabble in writing or art or anything like that?
I do write a little bit. Right now, time is impossible. In the '90s, I had a comic book that was out that was doing decently well in the '90s market. It was a black
Okay.
and white book, which most everything was then. But my artist got picked up by Antarctic Press, and so I don't draw, so that meant the book ended. So it's still hanging out there. I guess I could finish that series.
What book is that?
And I also just got through finishing my first issue of a book that I think is getting printed by Scout. They're a little busy right now with Hollywood. So,
Very cool. That's cool. What was the book in the '90s called?
oh, it's called The Eighth Beast.
Okay.
It's kind of a first person account of what it would be like to live through the events that are described in the Book of Revelation without
Ooh.
any kind of message being portrayed. So not like we're preaching at you, but just what if like whatever this says happens in a way that is explainable and would be terrifying. And most
Is
of my friends that read the book were like, "Stop writing it because it's scary."
Revelation is scary. Like for real. I grew up in the church, and I was actually training to become a pastor, a preacher. But I remember doing a class that we did a very intensive study on the Book of Revelation. Which is a book that a lot of people that even read their Bibles every day kind of don't really get into because it's kind of uncomfortable, and it's also it's filled with a lot of like symbolic language and stuff. So like in the book, was it like, were you like literal? Were there like like locusts with these weird faces and all that kind of stuff coming at them?
Haven't gotten that far in the storyline.
Okay.
But there's a lot of stuff that's in there. Like when they talk about wormwood, that was my episode, my issue 3 was going to be dealing with that. It's an actual comment that, what if scientists sent a rover out to just like go and take samples from it, and when they brought it back, they weren't very good about keeping the biological stuff that they found there away from everything, and it ends up causing a giant plague because we're not meant to be exposed to things that aren't from our own planet. Obviously, they're biological. And then that explains away the third of the Earth dying from plague and having wormwood, which causes it. So it's like, those are the ways I wrote things, is like, it could be particularly, it could be very literal in the way you write. You just have to tell it in a way that makes complete sense.
That's awesome. That sounds really exciting. I adore Jonathan Hickman's East of West, because it's kind of like an interpretation, like a recontextualization of the events of Revelation, but in a pre-apocalyptic like sci-fi setting, which I adore that book. That was one of my favorite, like in recent memory, like start to finish stories that like took several years to develop. That's something I miss in a lot of comics now, is like long stories. Things like, I look back in the 90s, I think of things like Sandman and Preacher and Transmetropolitan or The Invisibles, books that developed over time. And it's like, I feel like the publishers are so quick now, right, to like just cut it off if it's not like initially like hitting some numbers. But it takes time for things to build,
I also feel like maybe writers that are trying to break in write a shorter start to their things. So like let's say that I was pitching to someone and say, I've got a 3-issue series or a 6-issue series I'm interested in. That could go longer if you like. Well, if it gets to the end of its first story arc and there's like a million other things that they want to print, I think that's what happens. I think it's not that it's not good, but they're kind of addicted to the number 1, because the number 1 always gets that big bump, and then number 2 numbers go way down, which is the way that it has always been. It's always gone to halfsies or lower, and it's very rare that doesn't happen. Like Berserker probably did not go that way. It probably ended up going higher at my store as people found the title.
Yeah.
But it does make it harder if the expectation is that you have to try to keep your numbers way up. And if it gets under a certain number, they just let it go. And people are now gotten used to it has to be 6 issues and it's done, right? Well, it gets to the 6th issue and people just assume it's finished.
Yeah.
Then maybe they don't return for the 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, that is true. But then you have titles like Something is Killing the Children, that's kind of doing its own interpretation of the Walking Dead model. They're rare now. They don't really happen but there's not as much opportunity necessarily for it to happen too, where a book gains word of mouth and just picks up and builds momentum and goes. And then sometimes, books go too long, right? And I love a good short story with a beginning, middle, and end. My favorite book this last year was Many Deaths of Layla Starr. Like 5 issues. Ron V. Yeah, Ron V's my favorite writer. Like, absolutely. Like, the most nervous I've ever been on my channel probably was when I had Chris Matheson, co-creator of Bill and Ted, and when I had Ron V. And I was so freaking nervous. I told him like 8 times, I think, how much of a fan I was.
So I met Rom at Comics Pro. I don't know, now it must be 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And he sat down at my table and he pulled out his business card. And on the front was like a normal business card. And on the back was this like weird ring thing. And I was like, oh, so you're a fan of Arrival? Because it was the heptapod language on the back of his card. And he goes, okay. Yeah, I am. He goes, what does that say? I said, it says human. And he was like, what the heck? I watched that movie one too many times, I guess. But I told him, I said, I want you to understand that you are going to be at the highest level of this industry. And I want you to get yourself ready for it, because your writing is where it needs to be to get there. You are going to be working for the big 2, and you're going to be working for all. He was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Because at that point, he just had one book out, and he had a bunch of stuff that was out from India that he's already famous there. Yeah. That was the problem. But so we talk about that every once in a while. He's like, Miss Gem is right.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, you can see it early on. The first time I checked out his work, it was actually Paradiso, but I didn't realize that was him at the time. And then The Savage Shores, right? Which freaking amazing. And then I go back and I read Graffiti's Wall, and I just recently read Black Mamba for the first time.
Oh, what a treat.
Oh, I know, right? Because I actually just filmed a top 5 Rom V video, and I wanted to make sure that I had Black Mamba under my belt. And oh my goodness, what a fantastic writer. And it's the trend, without trying to spoil too much of the list, is that he's just getting better, right? And it's mind-boggling the way, and it's him, and it's the whole White Noise crew. You know, Dan Waters and Alex Packnadell and Ryan O'Sullivan. They're all fantastic, but Rom is right now just being incredibly impressive on all levels of the industry. I mean, he's going to be doing Carnage and Venom. I never thought we would live in a world where Rom V's doing Carnage books. At the same time, I'm doing these really nuanced explorations of the human experience, like Mini Desolate Lestar and Radio Apocalypse now. He's the best.
Tell me you've gotten to read Blue and Green.
That was my favorite book of, I guess, what was that, 2020, I think? Yeah. Blue and Green's amazing.
That should have been Eisner material. I think everyone's distracted. I think the Eisners got kind of weird this last couple of years because no one knows what to do.
I know, right? I went on a big rant about the Eisners, about how they snubbed Rom V. and Blue and Green was like, that was such a snub and all kinds of stuff. So I typically do not agree with what the Eisners think, but it's just the way it is, right?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how things actually get. I think that the companies or the people have to at least throw their hat into the ring for nomination, or there's a big nomination group. Like, I'm part of the nomination group for the Harvey Awards, so I know the names that get thrown in there have to be thrown in by the nomination group. So that's what I guess is happening with Eisner's, is that there's just no one on the nomination group that is reading his work, is my only guess.
Yeah, that's about to change, though. Like, 100%. Like, pretty certain. He's one of the top dogs in the industry right now, and just doing a great job, even on books like Catwoman. Still just cranking out like some of the best Catwoman books you're going to read, right?
Swamp Thing. It was so good they made it ongoing instead of a short series. Yeah,
it needed to be. I that's one of those ones that could be Rom's like 50 issue like thing over at the Big Two, right? Like an extended run of his Swamp Thing with this new character and these new ideas with Mike Perkins and Mike Spicer, the way they're doing the artwork, and then Bidikar, the best letterer in the game. Like, come on. Like, that Swamp Thing's was another one of my favorites of the year. Definitely made my top 10.
Oh yeah. I love that also he's bringing along people he's worked with for a long time, like Anand RK.
Yeah.
It's just like, yes, because the art is off the chart.
Yes. I mean, and it's different. And the thing about Anand's artwork is, like, look at Blue and Green, look at Graffiti's Wall, look at Radio Apocalypse. It's different. You know, you can tell it's the same person, but completely different. And it's appropriate to the tone and atmosphere set and demanded by the story. And the way that Rom with his collaborators are stretching, like the way that with Radio Apocalypse, they got a soundtrack that you listen to that affects, along with the pacing of the book, your reading, right? It's an active hand in the reading experience. And then the way they did Blue and Green as this like improvised jazz piece, like loved, like they went like page by page. Here I am again, just oozing about Rom V and his work with his collaborators.
I think you could probably guess, but I'm pretty sure that you might know that Rom is also a musician because so much of his stuff is based in music.
Yeah. He was when we had him on the show, he was talking about how much he thinks about rhythm when he's writing his scripts, right? And you can tell that 100%, right? And he's a musician and he's an artist, like a really talented artist too. His work is really good. He could, if he just wanted to focus on one thing, he could be a writer artist, right? But luckily we get all of these rich Rom V stories because he's leaning more into the writing, right? So I
suspect he's also an amazing actor and probably an amazing director. And
Yeah, and I'll say this. I've said this so many times. I'll say it again. Best hair in the industry. Like, and I was reading when I read Black Mamba. That was like from several years ago, and it was like Kickstarted or something. And in the back of it is a picture of him, and he's got like short hair, and he looked like such just a nerd. And I was like, what a change! Now he's like taking black and white photos, drinking coffee, smiling, like with his hair flowing in the air. I love it. I love it, man. He's definitely my favorite.
I loved seeing him at New York Comic Con. I think it was a couple of years ago, and he was starting to just get like getting his due in the public eye. And he was walking around on the floor. There was cameras following him, like actual video cameras. I was like, ha ha ha! I did this to him. I was like, hee.
That's awesome. I can't wait to one day meet him face to face once everything settles down, hopefully. So
he's the most genuine, sweet man.
That's what I hear. He's super cool, and been a friend of the show for a while. Since those days I was reading The Savage Shores, he was sending me early PDFs and doing DMing and all that kind of stuff. And super cool guy, man. Still was nervous when he was on my show, though. Super nervous. It was so fun, though. But it was great.
You definitely don't wait to open a DM from Robbie because you know he's going to give you something sneaky.
Yeah, right? He's like, don't tell anybody, but here's Radio Apocalypse. I'm like, yes. Thank you. Actually, he didn't do that with Radio Apocalypse. I'm just kidding.
He just sends me images. I don't get to know what it's about. I just get like, here's a page. Thanks. I love it.
That's awesome.
Now I have to wait, for the rest of it, which is going to take forever.
Yeah, that's one of the cool things about being a retailer and being on the YouTube game too is kind of the building these relationships with creators, writers, and artists and things like that, and getting to know them a little bit more, but still just being super generous with their times and I just want to once again just thank everybody out there that supports the channel, and when we have guests on and stuff, that's all because they're the coolest people. You know what I'm saying? And they're always. I haven't really had a bad conversation with one of them, right?
Right, and this is just an encouragement for anyone that's out there that's just interested in comics in general. Most artists and writers are not unapproachable people. They will interact with you if they have a social media page, then they meant it to be social. So don't be nervous about connecting with them and telling them how much you love their stuff, because if you don't do it and everybody else doesn't do it, then they never get positive feedback. They might think, I guess people are shrugging their shoulders at my things because no one ever tells me if they like it or no. Yeah.
Let them know and let others know too, because there's not really marketing departments at a lot of these publishers, even the bigger ones, which is surprisingly ridiculous. The lack of marketing from, say, Marvel, like when they release the biggest movies of the year, but they can't just like put a little tease of a trailer on there to be like, hey, yo, we got this thing, Devil's Reign, Daredevil, Kingpin, blah, blah, blah. Put it on the front of Hawkeye when Kingpin showed up. Nah, you don't want to do that, right? That would be weird. That wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, I've kind of wondered for a long time if that division between the studios and Marvel Entertainment, it's the comic arm, if the lawyers get in the way of things that would make sense for both parts of their company, but because of the mouse say, oh no, I can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so weird. It seems so backwards not to think that that's a possibility. But maybe that is something like they're just like, oh, we don't want to do that. But, they put together these trailers for their big events and their big launches or whatnot. I think there was a trailer for Cates' Hulk #1. Like, you could easily put that in front of a Marvel movie or whatever. So, do you like the MCU films?
I love them. Every time I watch another one, especially so I've been in the industry since '92, right? But there's still characters I don't know anything about. I didn't know anything about Shang-Chi. I didn't know anything about the Eternals. Anyone that tells you they know about the Eternals is a liar. It's just like one of those things, like 10 people were huge fans of that, and I haven't talked to any of them. But
I'm a huge Kirby head, and I still haven't read all of Eternals.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's not that it's not good, because it's really great. But if you didn't start with it, it's so hard to get into, because it's a big universe for that one. But I love the movies because they open up the universes for us and make them feel less scary. Like right now, I feel like I could go back and read Eternals and not be like, I have no idea what's going on. because now I've been given a kind of an easy primer for that universe. And for, when Guardians of the Galaxy came out, I was like, I guess I'm not nerdy enough for the world because I don't know anything about those characters either. But now everyone's an expert.
Yeah, everybody knows Rocket Raccoon and Groot now, which is wild because everybody back in those days were like, oh, this is going to be their first failure because nobody knows who Rocket Raccoon is. And I like to remind people that most of the general public didn't know who Iron Man was in 2007, but now everybody misses Tony Stark. So, like, that's a big flip right there. Like, in the 80s and 90s, like Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, they weren't the big properties. It was all X-Men, Spider-Man, right? And it's weird how that flipped, and Marvel had success with those characters.
It's kind of odd. I can remember when they announced that they were going to make Iron Man. And this was, they had only put out really kind of the Hulk movies and hadn't gone any farther, but I knew this is where they were kind of really starting their whole MCU launch, the serious stuff. And I remember them saying Iron Man and thinking to myself, really, they're starting their tentpole character as a womanizer, pill-popping alcoholic. I'm not real sure where they're going here.
And then they cast a womanizing, pill-popping alcoholic.
I guess they did. They did. They're playing to strengths, I guess. But yeah, I can't imagine that character being played by anybody else. It was played masterfully, and loved him for his flaws and celebrated his overcoming them. And yeah.
I still remember watching the Iron Man movie, and that was such a magical experience. I was like, man, this is like almost straight on like the comic. I was like, this is a really good adaptation. And then they built from there. I think I haven't been as impressed with their films this year, but I have been impressed with what they've done on Disney Plus. Mm-hmm. I really love WandaVision. Like, I love WandaVision. I think that's the best exploration on grief and on television in a long time, and I like the Loki show. That was interesting. It seems like that set some stuff up. And then I really enjoyed the Hawkeye show. I feel like Kingpin was a little goofy compared to the Daredevil show, but obviously different audience for Disney Plus, Kate Bishop, Clint Barton Hawkeye show versus this really nitty and gritty Daredevil show. But I'm excited to see what they do with those characters. I hope they get to do more than just little bit parts in Spider-Man and Hawkeye. I'd like to see them like do a Born Again type thing or something for Daredevil. That'd be cool. Yeah,
I'm waiting for them to draw in the character they introduced in Winter Soldier. That's the very last scene I think we see where we get introduced to. What is it called? Is it Victoria?
Yeah. Okay. You're the Falcon Winter Soldier show.
Yes.
Yeah, played by Julie Louis-Dreyfus, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because you know who that ends up being, right?
Okay, so I'm trying to remember because it's been a while now since those came out. Wasn't that supposed to be Madam Hydra?
Yep.
Okay, I thought so. And it seems like she's setting up the Thunderbolts or something, is what I was getting.
That'd be cool.
Because she's got US Agent.
Another group that no one knows anything about, but they're going to fake like they do.
Yeah, right? And Thunderbolts could work, especially like they could bring in US Agent, and you still got plenty of villains that are alive in the MCU, like more of the minor ones and stuff, right? Maybe Batroc shows back up or something. I don't know.
I should really like Batroc. I mean, when you start with a character that's wearing like yellow and purple and is called Batroc the Leaper.
Yeah.
It has like a French, like weird swirly mustache. I was like, how are they going to even make this work? But this guy seems like I would be scared of that Algerian.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jen, thank you so much for your time and hanging out and discussing the industry and pop culture and Rom V with us today.
Thank you for the invite. I enjoyed it very much.
Absolutely. We'll have to do it again soon. And reach out. I'd love to be on that game show. And once again, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you at?
I'm Jen King. I own Space Cadets Collection. You can reach out to me on Facebook is the place where I usually hang out and talk. Jen King. I'm the one that looks just like this.
Nice. All right, y'all. And check out her shows over at the EXP. Of course, you can also check out my show over at the EXP with Rex and John from Dynamic Forces when we always have the comic collectibles. I think we follow one of your shows on Monday night.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a nice double. And then I think you're after us.
Yeah, I like watching y'all's show right before I do one of mine. You guys have a great fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jen, for joining us. Thank you out there for watching us. Let us know anything in the comments below about what we discussed today. Y'all keep on rocking. Station. Pop, pop, boom.